So I appreciate that.
Excellent. Thank you, Kaylee and staff. Next, we're going to move into open forum 2.3. Before we get started with that, just like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. It is, it's always nice to have a full room, especially when we say the Pledge of Allegiance. We never hear that level of echoing in the background. So do appreciate everyone coming out tonight. Just a couple of reminders as we go into that. Open forum is a time to speak to the board, to talk to the board, but it's not a time for the board to respond. So if you do want response, we can follow up afterwards via email or others to get in contact you and address any conditions associated with that. I also just ask you during this time to be respectful. This is not the time designated to address concerns about specific staff or students or personal attacks on anyone at the podium. Those are really unacceptable. We'll usually give a warning and then have to cut you off, but I'm hopeful that there's none of that, and that's quite rare, but just like to remind people of some of those ground rules before we start. It is 3 minutes. Given the number of people that we have tonight, we're gonna stay strict with the 3 minutes tonight. Sarah's gonna give a 30-second warning, just a verbal warning. So if you want to come up and you're speaking and have the timer in front of you yourself, just be respectful of others. The timer will go off at 3 minutes. If you're not wrapped up, I will ask you, to stop within 5 seconds or so. So I don't want you to think that I'm super rude or anything. That's just the rules that we want to continue to apply by and go by from that standpoint, and we'll be strict about that tonight. Also, just out of respect, I know given the list that we have tonight, we got a lot of mask mandates. Both sides of the topic will probably be represented as well. Just please be respectful. In the past, we've asked people not to applaud or clap, and that's just out of respect for both sides of the room and stuff like that. So we have respect and civility in the boardroom. So I just ask you to try to follow along with that this evening. And with that, let's get started. So first tonight is Jonas Joberg. Joberg. Thank you. Welcome.
There we go. Okay. Board members, Board Chair Ross, and Superintendent Sales Adams. I'm Jonas Sjoberg. I'm a resident here in Chaska, and I wanted to talk about vaccination today. But before I start, I just made a quick reflection. I noticed that the case rates that was in the slide before was a 7-day case rate. I was pretty sure that last year MDH had a 14-day case rate. It's just a comment. I don't know if maybe there's something I don't know about that you guys know. So with my what I had prepared to talk about today, I wanted to talk about being a good citizen and connecting to what I just heard about the district's safe learning plan. There was one thing I was missing in that, and that's what I was hoping to address. So for me, I feel like I want to be a good citizen. I want to be a good neighbor. So for me, when the vaccine was available, it was a no-brainer. If I can help my neighbors, if I can help people get vaccinated, absolutely. I was, first in line to, as soon as I could get the vaccine, I got it. And I know that it's a not controversial, but it's, people have different opinions about vaccination. And I know there's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of people stoking fears. And, grown men and women are scared about taking the vaccine. And I didn't want to talk about necessarily why grown men and women are fearful about the vaccine. But I wanted to talk about what I feel like you can do as a community member. So the district, as a large employer in the region and as a large community entity, you could help your employees, your staff member, become vaccinated, or help encourage your staff member to become vaccinated. I know that, I believe it's the state of Minnesota, and I know that School District 287 and there might be other districts I'm not familiar with, have implemented a policy that states that staff members,
30 seconds.
thank you, staff members need to show proof of vaccination or show on a weekly basis, show a negative COVID test. I feel like that is a perfectly fine policy and shows that the district is serious about how the district feels about vaccines and how that the district is serious about COVID. And because it lets people have their exceptions. Is that me?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Thanks, Jonas.
I hope that you can consider implementing such a policy.
Thanks, Jonas.
Thank you.
Next is Krista Weymouth. Hi, Krista.
My name is Dr. Krista Waymeyer. I am a family physician, board certified. I live in Chanhassen and have 4 kids in the district. I work in the emergency department. I'm here hopefully to calm some fears, to address COVID and whether it is dangerous for children, and if mask wearing is an effective means of COVID mitigation. According to the Minnesota Department of Health, as of July 7th, 2021, the estimated COVID survival rate for those 29 and under is 100%. As of July 19th, the CDC reported in the U.S. as a whole, there was a total of 335 children who had died with a diagnosis of COVID on their death certificate without specifying whether or not they died with COVID or from COVID. Johns Hopkins then investigated those deaths and found that they were all children with serious comorbidities such as leukemia. There have been 0 COVID deaths among healthy children. Regarding face masks, specifically the ones that our children have been wearing that are being worn around the community, I sourced OSHA, who regulates workplace safety, specifically masks in this case, not talking about N95 respirators. Per OSHA, face masks that we've been wearing do not seal tightly to the wearer's face. They allow unfiltered air to easily flow around the sides of the mask into the respiratory tract. The materials for the face masks are not regulated for their ability to filter particles and are known to vary greatly between models. They are not considered respiratory protection. Face masks do not provide the wearer with a reliable level of protection from inhaling smaller particles. And if you wonder how big are COVID particles, I sourced FEMA. For perspective, the wildfire particles that we were noticing that carry the smoke and smog from the Canadian wildfires are 5 times larger than a COVID particle. If you were wearing a face mask during these times recently and could smell the wildfires, you were not wearing a mask that was protecting you from COVID. If you'd like to test this, put your face mask on, light a candle, have someone blow it out, and if you can smell the residual odor with your mask on, you are not protected from COVID. Next question that I wanted to address is if mask mandates work. You can look at the COVID Tracking Project, which sources its data from the Minnesota Department of Health and its equivalents around the United States. It shows clearly that ending mask mandates had absolutely no effect, particularly on COVID hospitalizations. These are sourced by New England Journal of Medicine, JAMA, CDC, and FDA. Finally, and most importantly, according to the Journal of American Academy of Pediatrics in December of 2020, the rate of suicidal ideation and attempts increased 92% among children, particularly during the most severe mitigation measures. Children are more likely to die from drowning, motor vehicle accidents, firearms, cancers, drug overdoses than they are from COVID. It's a lie to say that mask mandates do not harm children. Please, why would we force our children to wear masks knowing that COVID does not pose a danger to our children? The masks we and our children have been wearing at school and the community are ineffective and harmful.
Thanks, Crystal. I do ask you guys, I mean, I know that for the applaud side, but please. Next up is John Arsenault. Hi, John.
Thank you. My name is John Arsenault. My wife and I live here in Carver for 15 years. We have 2 children in the school district. I am grateful for the board for the brave decision to not enforce mask mandates on our children. However, there are some in the room, some in the community that are still pushing for that. Following up what our wonderful doctor just said, I've listened to the pro-mask arguments, and they're missing very vital things like evidence, data, science, common sense, and basic human decency. The pro-maskers present no facts, so let me do that now. COVID, as you just heard, presents no risk to our children whatsoever. We had 4.2 million children diagnosed with COVID last year, and as we just heard, 0 have died. Compare that to the 2018 and 19 flu season. We had 480 kids die from the flu in that year, and not one single person in this room advocated for a mask for our children to wear to school. Why is that? Because it would have been insane to do so. Do you know what it's called to force your children to wear a mask for a virus that poses almost no threat to them? It's called child abuse. If you want to talk about a real disease, look up Munchausen syndrome by proxy, because that's what this is. Now, if you think I'm exaggerating, how would you respond to a parent who forces their kid to wear a rubber suit to school every day to protect them from lightning? Because you're almost as likely to die from COVID as you are from being struck by lightning. And you would say to that parent that they're an abusive parent forcing their kids to participate in an insane charade in order to satisfy their delusional psychotic hypochondria. Do any of us know what kind of psychological damage we're doing to our children for forcing them to cover their faces like rabid dogs? What kind of phobias are we incubating in them by teaching them that the air they breathe is toxic and everyone they come in contact with or any surface they may touch poses a threat to them? What about the increased risk of lung disease by forcing them to breathe through sweat and dirt and spit-soaked cloth? Ask yourself, are you satisfied to place this burden on your children? If so, why? It's not that you're keeping them safe. They are safe. There is no risk to them based on the data. It's not to keep the adults safe. We can get vaccinated if we want to. No, if you're advocating to muzzle our children, you're doing it to make yourselves feel better. It's nothing more than disgusting political theater. It's our kids. If we want our kids to wear a mask, they will wear a mask. If we don't want them to wear a mask, they're not wearing a mask. Okay? A child's mask is a symbolic security blanket for you, whoever's advocating for them, not them. It's pathetic, it's a disgrace. Everyone knows it, and anyone advocating for this should be ashamed. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Please, I ask again on the applause. I do want to make it through the whole list, so if we could just stay to that, please help me out. Next up, Jeff May. Hey, Jeff.
All right, good evening. First, I want to thank the board. I'm sure in your job description, navigating your way through a pandemic was not in it. So second, I wish to make it clear that being anti-mask mandate for my children is not anti-science or anti the people who choose to mask. I am for the choice and the freedom to choose either. I also feel it relevant to explain some of my background so as not to be painted with the dogmatic brushstrokes of those with differing opinions whom wish to paint me and others as conspiracy-crazed, right-winged, uneducated bigots. I stand here tonight as a doctor and a dad. Upon becoming both of these things, I took an oath, one public and one private. The first on becoming a doctor of chiropractic, I took the Hippocratic Oath, which in it states that my first duty is to do no harm. And the second on becoming a dad, I made a private oath between me and my Creator that I would protect my child and do everything in my power to provide a better life than my own. It is under these two oaths that I stand here tonight. And while I'm grateful for the right to choose from masking for now, the looming thought of that being stripped away is all too real. Over the past year, we have all been witness to the ever-changing and moving goalposts, 17 months into 2 weeks to flatten the curve. One thing that has remained a constant, however, is that our children are at no significant risk of death to this virus. As a parent, I would consider this the greatest reason to celebrate rather than to create more debates. In 13 years of my career, I've missed 1.5 days due to illness. Nearly 500,000 patient-to-patient encounters over those 13 years. And of my 4 children, they combined for 15 school years between the 4 of them and no more than 7 absentee days due to illness. The conversation needs to shift from controlling disease to creating health. In school, just like in any good test, the numbers tell the story, and with the health results of me and my family, I can personally speak, we are getting straight A's. In parting, I would like to share this key insight into health. One, I pray to God himself that we all remember this fall. In any species, they get sick for only 2 reasons: toxicity and deficiency. Toxicity, whereas something toxic has entered into your ecosystem and into your cells. The second, deficiency, defined as you are not supplying something to your ecosystem which is genetically required for healthy cellular function. In the future, if masks once again become mandated, they increase both risk factors of becoming sick, increasing the toxicity load of carbon dioxide and decreasing the amount of oxygen into our cellular system, which is the most essential element to life. I love Jesus and America and sleep soundly knowing that the ultimate test of something that is how you judge it is by its fruit. And out of the 2,475 school days, my children have been healthy 99.72% of the time. And that is something I not only judge as good fruit, but something that I want for all families to be able to experience. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. I know it's tough. I know. Please help me out, though. Please. Next, Mary Williamson. Hi, Mary.
Good evening, board. Good evening, community. My name is Mary Williamson. I am a 22-year resident of the city of Carver, and I appreciate and recognize your time, board, tonight and in all matters, as I served 5 years on our city council, among other boards and different organizations in town. I have 2 children entering 7th and 10th grade this coming year. I would like to take the opportunity to share my viewpoint about this current discussion of whether or not to require our children to endure a second year of disruption and confusion wearing a mask. A mask that is shown innumerable times to be a collector of carbon dioxide, a list of bacteria, lunch and snack debris, as well as a hindrance on our children's ability to learn, play sports, and have a semblance of a peace of mind. Fear can only exist where faith is absent. In the current narrative, our babies, our little ones, our preteens, our teenagers, they are the least likely to suffer from the effects of the COVID virus. At this moment, the opportunities to support all of these children by honoring our Constitution and upholding our rights to choose what we put on our bodies is still ours to make. At this moment, take the opportunity to place yourself in a child's seat in school, peering through their foggy lenses, their eyelashes and their tender skin being rubbed and their earlobes being cut into by the elastic bands. Can you consider for a moment what it's like to be that child? What are they thinking and how are they feeling? At this moment, the opportunity to reconsider our right to choose is literally in our hands, and in one vote may be taken away. At this moment, have we considered what the repercussions on our children's futures are going to be? By agreeing to hand over our rights on this matter, they may never remember or know what its true American freedom is. The division in our community on this topic of freedom of choice regarding being required to wear a face mask is palatable. The need for this community to stand together and see this is about a slow yet completely visible taking of our rights to choose what happens to our children in our schools. Board and community, it's time for us all to stand together and choose freedom. Freedom from fear, coercion, guilt, shame. Freedom to think and consider and
30
discuss,
seconds.
debate, and seek our truth and their truth. Freedom is ours to honor and uphold. Let's demonstrate to our children how our civil liberties really do work. God bless us, protect us all, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next, Patricia Williamson. Hi, Patricia.
Good evening, board. Thank you for having us and allowing the opportunity for parents that have children in this district to speak up on their behalf. My name is Dr. Patricia Williamson. I am a nutritional scientist with a PhD. I also have studied immunology and other things along the way. So there's a whole lot of background here, but I also work in scientific and regulatory affairs professionally. I will get to that in a minute, but I will follow up my comments with some written references in support of what I have to say. I think our educational quality concerns and a need for consistent school year is very important to our children. I have a 7th grader here in Chaska, where we live, not too very far from the schools. Her first expression when we received the letter from the district stating that the mask would be recommended but not required. She says, and how long will it take before they shift their mind and make us wear them? I don't want to go back if I have to. And I said, well, we'll cross that bridge, sweetheart. But we also noticed last year the constant shifting goalposts and changes and uncertainty, no doubt not your own in creation. But fool me once, that's one thing, but fool me twice, I feel that like I'm getting the same message as I did at the start of last year. So let's follow the data, shall we? Shall we focus more on our students, be smart about the data that we're receiving, that we're actually looking over, and not to cover ground from other parents around the risk to our children when it comes to this contagion? Would we have done these same kind of measures as we have in the past for flu? No. We would probably say, oh my gosh, Susie and Johnny's little school, their particular building, their particular class has 50% of the kids out. Maybe we close down for a couple weeks because this is extreme and we're going to wait this one out for all the kids. But we wouldn't close every building, and we would not go to a hybrid learning plan. Follow the data. Stay specific to our children. Stay specific to their needs. However, I'm going to speak about not being singly focused on the contaminant, on the environment, on the virus, but rather on their mental health status. When we're talking about social and emotional learning, which was mentioned earlier tonight, and we're talking about things like mask mandates and other efforts that may come around, and we need to be
30
flexible
seconds.
and have priorities, but we don't have requirements and quality standards here. Masks are covering facial expression and are linked to anxiety and depression in our children when they cannot learn to understand facial expressions. It creates a barrier for social emotional development. There's a recent publication that was written by a global community of authors, Mental Health of Children and Adolescents Amid COVID-19 and Past Pandemics, a systematic review. And in this, they recommend against masking because of the anxiety it causes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, please. Kayla Merkling. Hi, Kayla.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kayla Merkling. I am the mother of an incoming kindergartner, and I'm here tonight to thank and encourage the board for making masks optional. No matter which side of this discussion you're on, as a parent, you've been given the right to choose what is best for your family, and that's exactly how it should be. That being said, I understand that this is a very fluid situation, and as a parent with deeply rooted concerns over masking my child, I felt the need to voice my concerns at the potential overturn of this respected decision. My hope is that I'll leave you with some things to consider. In prep for this meeting, I watched the replay of your last. 2 moms spoke that day, both full of passion and care for their position. I found it ironic that when the pro-mask mom took to the mic, she promptly removed her mask and stated, "I'll take this off so you can hear me," and then proceeded to state all the reasons why children must be masked despite having just insisted she take hers off to be heard. And I wondered how this translates into a classroom setting with teachers trying to project to 26 sets of little ears, or worse, small voices trying to be understood by both their teachers and peers alike. I wonder how newly enrolling students will learn how to read without the ability to see or copy phonetic sounds. And after speaking to several teacher friends, they too have concerns about the disadvantage masking puts on early readers. Elementary school is a time to build confidence, a love of learning, fostering of friendships, and the development of self through expression and discovery. School is so much more than delivering curriculum. But what truly concerns me is the mental and emotional impacts we're inflicting on our young people. And I spent the last 3 months gathering recounts from other parents in hopes of hearing that it wasn't that bad and there's nothing negative to report. I truly wanted someone to disarm my concerns, and unfortunately, that's not what happened. Instead, I heard from a mom who reported her son could not have guests in their home without causing him distress, or a mom whose child washed his hands so aggressively he developed sores on its hands and arms and later began walking around with his hands in the air like a surgeon so as not to touch anything or anyone, or my niece who, despite being a virtual learner last year, developed anxiety over dining in a restaurant or going to a family birthday party. She's scared of people. She's 6. We get one shot at introducing the construct of school to these kids, and under a hypothetical scenario of a mask mandate, we're blowing it. This practice of covering our faces when we're not sick, teaching kids the air is toxic, their friends and teachers are toxic, it's harming them. And parents, if you think you're going to be able to look your child in the eye one day and say the pandemic is over and they'll go back to being kids again, unafraid of everything they've been hearing on repeat since early 2020, I urge you, please reconsider.
30 seconds.
So as we move into the school year, perhaps we encourage our students and faculty a little different this year. Let our teachers and kids get back to normal, reminding them the importance of basic hygiene, getting plenty of rest, eating well, exercise, supplementing their bodies for immune support. Teach our youth practices that will serve them far beyond the COVID era. One final thing I'd like to point out is the divisive nature of this topic, and it's my understanding that some parents were afraid to come here tonight to speak their truth in fear of retaliation and doxing. Parents, our kids are watching, and we don't have to agree on this, but we're not your enemy, no more than I am yours. We simply want to maintain the right to choose. Thank you.
Next up is April Jones-Kendall. Hi, April.
I'd like to first start off by thanking our board members for giving parents the right to choose what is best for their children regarding masks as the school year begins. I'm standing here today not because I want to, but because I feel I have no choice. Schools all around us are forcing kids to wear masks without the scientific evidence to support such a policy. However, the adverse effects of COVID-19 pandemic and mask wearing in regards to mental health outcomes has been well documented. The negative emotional and psychological effects of masking children far outweigh any perceived benefits of masks, and these mental and psychological effects are yet to be fully realized. We live in an age of disconnection, overstimulation, and disassociation that our kids already struggle with. As social media, online learning, and other emerging technologies are introduced to our kids are no longer learning to see each other as people, as humans, as a person they can connect with and relate to, which is creating an incredible rise in youth anxiety and depression, and to a much deeper extent than we've ever seen in the past. Instead, children are seeing others as just a set of eyes behind a mask or an avatar on a screen, a vague representation of a person and nothing more. They are missing a very necessary human connection required for living in a civilized society, which is highly exacerbated by masks. The rate of teen suicides, anxiety cases, and substance abuse were at staggering rates prior to COVID-19, but have drastically gotten worse since COVID. According to Yale Medicine, between March and October of 2020, there was a 24% increase in mental health ER visits for kids ages 5 to 11, and 31% increase for ages 12 to 17, as compared to just the prior year. That's only 9 months worth of data, and yet the increase is in the double digits. A study recently done by the University of Waterloo's Department of Psychology shows that kids already suffering from social anxiety show increased distress due to mask wearing, and that kids who never suffered from social anxiety in the past are now exhibiting symptoms of anxiety. The mental health industry is overwhelmed by the surge in mental health needs for the youth, to the point that kids can't even get in to see someone for months. 2 doctors at the London Institute of Psychology explain that normal child development needs, not wants, needs children to see people expressing their emotions.
30 seconds.
Roughly 60% of communication is nonverbal. We are teaching our kids to be afraid of their bodies and afraid of their peers without cause. We need to put the mental and emotional health of our children above the fears and emotions of the adults. Fear is something that should never be taught or perpetuated in a school environment, especially when those fears have no grounds for support. School is a place where kids go to learn core concepts and develop social skills that will carry them for the rest of their life. We are robbing our kids of these social skills by hiding their biggest form of communication and identity.
Thank you, April. Next up, Danielle. Danielle. My bad. Ingebertson?
Ingebertson, yes.
So
That's
close.
a tough one.
So close.
Super long
I
name.
thought I had that one. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Danielle Ingebertson, and I live in the community. I'm in Victoria. I have a daughter going into her senior year, and she is 18 years old. And I just want to tell a story that happened today, actually. And I'm not even sure, why God gave us this moment. But my daughter has struggled to try to get her permit for the last 2 years since this pandemic started. And she's taken online tests that were supplied to our kids because of COVID. And she failed those because they were timed, which is not fair because when you go into a DMV, they're not timed. So today we got there and she had to put a mask on. She went in for her test and she failed. And when she came out, she told me if I wouldn't have had to wear that mask, I don't know if I would have failed. My daughter has ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, a full IEP through District 112. Masks are a huge distraction for kids like her. So I'm very thankful that you guys have decided at this point to hold off on mandating anything regarding masks. I do believe it should stand to be a choice. I am going to take this a little bit further because unfortunately through this pandemic, a lot of parents have lost trust. We've lost trust in school boards. We've watched school boards across the nation let people down when they're elected. We have watched the CDC let us down. The National Institute of Health let us down. We have watched the FDA for certain let us down. And countless lives have been lost because of those agencies. I don't trust them anymore. Numbers you guys put up, it's hard to believe. Why would we believe them? All of the trust has been lost. So I am more here worrying about the future with numbers that you guys are getting from agencies that don't have any credibility anymore. And I did bring a couple of, I brought a study that just lists all the different things that cause issues with our kids with masks, and us for that matter. And I mean, we're not meant to not have a homeostatic balance between oxygen and CO2 that is disrupted by something over our face. I look at those face masks as like your dirty dish rag that's dried in your kitchen sink in the morning and putting it on your face and expecting your kid to go out and learn for 7 hours with that on your face. It's disgusting. Furthermore, I feel like I have an obligation to tell you
30
all
seconds.
that there are four things I think and believe, and I think that I know from working in the background with a very silent majority who is working very, very hard. We have constitutional lawyers in our pockets right now. These are the things we will not tolerate. Face masks, online school, vaccines with segregation, and CRT. There will not be any more discussion about CRT. That will not come down the line. We are not going to have any more Muhammad Khalifas coming in and teaching our
Danielle,
teachers.
I got to cut you off. Thank you.
I'm sure you do. We do have the right to speak. So
do.
that's where we're at.
Thank you.
So please, I really appreciate everything you guys do with this, but don't make us trust you less than we already do.
Happy to have a conversation offline. All right, and our final speaker tonight is Ann Nieber. Hi, Ann.
I just want to say thank you for having us and allowing us to speak. And also a lot of what I'm going to say has already been repeated, but I feel that it's necessary. My name is Ann Nieber. I'm new to the district in the last 3 years, and I have 2 children at Chaska High School. I'm here tonight to discuss our parental rights and our abilities as parents to choose or to not choose masking for our children. Many of us are opposed to making the children wear masks, and I know that that was decided, but this was written just in case. And yes, there are those here who would like their children to be masked, and that's their personal choice. I'm all for it. But like I am respecting their rights to decide for their children, I would expect them and the board to reciprocate the same respect when it comes to our children. Let me ask you this. How many of you have taken your children to the doctor's office and they have said to you, oh, sorry, it's a virus. There's nothing we can do. Just let it run its course. They never once told us, hey, mask up. It's a virus. Protect those around you. Mask up. Socially distance yourself. Not even during the flu season is this said, and the flu cases cause more death each year for children than COVID. There have been roughly 325 deaths under the age of 18, and the number of deaths is steadily going down. In 2018 and 19, there were 480 deaths due to flu. In 2017, there were 186. In 2016, there were 171. That means the trend is on the rise for children's deaths from flu. During the flu season, do we have these votes and discussions at school board meetings whether or not we should require masks in our schools? Nope, we don't. As we all know, the CDC has changed their stance as to how, when, where, and what masks need to be worn close to a dozen times in almost as many months. Still, they cannot pinpoint where, how, when, or who will get the virus, or how anyone will react. This is a respiratory virus that has a 99.6 survival rate, and better survival rates than that in our children. Most of us can fight COVID off with our own immune systems, but the masking from this virus is causing harm to our children on multiple levels. There is plenty of evidence to support the removal of masks for all, but we are specifically concerned and here to stand up for our children. In regards to masks, in 2009 and 2015, the NIH conducted a test of cloth masks against respiratory viruses. Both tests concluded that masks are ineffective and should not be recommended due to the increased rate of infection while in use. Regarding our children, many medical studies recently have been done
30
and
seconds.
conclusions made that mask wearing is having multifarious adverse effects on the mental health of our youth. That is to quote the CDC just last year. The CDC continued that adolescents and young adults experienced increased depression and anxiety symptoms, and that COVID-19 measures may be particularly detrimental to youth. Parents should have the ability to choose whether their children are subjected to this. We are coming up on 2 years of masking, and if you're not going to ask us to mask our children, if you're going to ask us to mask our children, let's see the data and scientific evidence that really works.
Thanks, Ann.
At the very least, we need to have an exit strategy.
Thank you. Again, thank you everyone for coming out and providing opinion during the open forum. For those, we will follow up on comments as well, for those who want follow-up associated with them. There isn't. I mean, so what we do is we provide the time at the beginning for individuals to sign up, and we let that list continue to build. And then it's closed before it, just for planning of the board and other things associated with it. So
You don't have 3 additional minutes to hear from a parent in the community?
you know what, the problem is again, I don't want to quite get into this dialogue. I'd love to have a side conversation with you. Email me. I'll talk to you about it as well. It's just if we break protocol here, we break protocol each and every time. No, the protocol is for open forum is up to 45 minutes, but it needs to be signed up beforehand. So again, thank you.
So this is not really the time that we interact as a board. We're here for our board meeting, but we would love to have a conversation with you offline. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
That's really disappointing. There's great in this college with 15 spots. We haven't used the time for the spots.
So again, I encourage you, reach out to me directly. I'll be happy to talk with you.
We let a couple guys in here virtue signaling with their mask on and come in and speak, so why not let this lady speak?
You know, again, I don't want to break protocol. I want to stick to the guidance associated that we have on the board meeting.
How much you care about the parents and the kids, and then we're trying to stick up for our parents and kids, and you won't even let us speak.
Hey guys, come on. Let's stay civil. I think at the end of the day,
The proper respect that we ask.
This is what the forum is for. It's 3 minutes. We spent more than 3 minutes having this conversation. It could have.
so again, what we have with the board, in the rules are out front to sign up for public forum ahead of time to be able to have that opportunity to speak.
There was extra spots, and then if there was time, I could make the decision to speak. This is my very first meeting, so that's why I wanted to see what it was like, and there was time and there was spots, so I thought I would be able to speak.
I am truly sorry for that miscommunication on that
We've already
front.
talked in the time we've talked about it.
I agree.
All right, let's move on.
I agree. We're gonna move on our agenda. This week, again, I'm really sorry to be at this level. I really am. I'm a parent in the community. I care. I really do care. I am sorry from that standpoint. Again, I'll spend all the time you want one-on-one with that. So, with that, we're gonna move on to our next board agenda, which is the consent agenda.